Hi there, welcome back to another Crypto Dave video. It's Friday, which means another crypto interest rates and news update. Today is the 27th of May 2022. And as always, we start by taking a look at any new coins or rate changes. And I've got nothing to report here at the moment, but in a few days' time, it will be the 1st of June, and we will have some dramatic and widespread kind of like changes really kind of across the board. So we'll be talking through those in a little bit more detail in a minute, but I've kept this as up to date as I can. I just saw one or two tiny discrepancies this morning, nothing kind of like dramatic, but I will be going over on the 1st of June, and I will not only update the rates, but I'll go through everything, make sure that everything is up to date. Any new coins or anything like that are reflected in the sheet as well. Excuse me. So moving on to the token prices, you can see another kind of pretty sideways week for Bitcoin. We have dropped down, but we're moving kind of like sideways. We're moving between that sort of like 28 or 29 to sort of 31,000. We dipped below that a little bit yesterday, dropped into the 28s, but we have recovered back up to sort of like around kind of 29. But it looks as if this is kind of like almost kind of like a wedge or sideways kind of channel is maybe slightly trending kind of downwards. I always think, as I mentioned last week, that if you move sideways in the same channel for quite a long time, often you see a breakdown from that, and we seem to be seeing more attempts to break down from here than we do attempts to break up. Although it must be said that the downward kind of like dump yesterday, I think it went down to about 28.5, was brought back up pretty heavily and went back up to 29 plus. We currently just dropped down a little bit again today, and we're currently trading just over 29,000, but yeah, nothing kind of like dramatic really has happened. Bitcoin, it looks like it's 4% down, but we were at a little bit of a kind of peak there. You can see another kind of peak there, so we are still within that kind of like sideways trading range. Now in comparison, yield app's had a good week, up 2.5%. It's the only token here that's in positive territory. Kronos down 12.1%, Nexo down 10%, similar amount. Celsius Network, another appalling week for Celsius Network, down 29.1% over the last 7 days. I talked a little bit last week about some of the negative sentiment around kind of like Celsius. And that seems to be continuing. I think people are starting to pull coins off of the kind of the platform. Now, I'm not suggesting for a moment that they are in trouble, but what you do have to kind of like factor in is how quickly these things can kind of escalate. If there is a bit of a kind of like run on these kind of platforms, what can happen often is that, you know, there's not enough money in the kind of hot wallets to deal with all the kind of like transactions, and then suddenly people start posting that, you know, I can't get my funds out, which kind of like further kind of like perpetuates the panic. In my own, in personal kind of terms, I did have a small amount left on Celsius, probably $10,000-$15,000 worth of kind of crypto, which I actually withdrew this morning. So make of that what you will, but what I don't want to do, particularly after kind of like everything that's happened with kind of like TerraLuna and stuff like that recently, is be sat in a kind of platform and not be able to get my kind of coins out when I wanted to. So I have removed everything from Celsius Network. I withdrew it this morning, put that into cold storage. So, you know, make of it what you will. I'm not suggesting that they are under kind of pressure or having issues, but if you are thinking about getting stuff off the kind of platform, you might want to jump in if you think that there will be a rush to do so. I've withdrawn plenty of kind of crypto over the years from Celsius Network. I've never had an issue with withdrawals from them, so I'm not suggesting that they are under any kind of pressure. But another really bad week on the Celsius kind of price. They are seemingly under increasing pressure from the community as well as obviously Celsius holders. Anyway, so let's jump on and have a quick look at some of the rate changes. So we've had two platforms that update on a monthly basis that have already announced their new rates. So that's Hodlnaut and BlockFi, and I am expecting the rate announcement from Ledn soon. Ledn's update often comes after BlockFi and Hodlnaut. I don't know how much of that is just they kind of like, you know, run it to as the end of the month as possible. I suspect a lot of it is maybe looking at other people's rates before they come to a complete conclusion. But let's start by having a look at the Hodlnaut changes, and unfortunately they're quite widespread and quite poor changes really. So the very tiny first tier that we've seen on other platforms like Ledn and BlockFi and other kind of platforms has now come to Hodlnaut. So as you can see here, and we'll look at the APY rates because that's basically what everyone else kind of quotes. But we now have a 0.1 tier. So the first tier is just your first 0.1 Bitcoin. Now with Hodlnaut, as opposed to some of the other platforms, they do allow wrapped Bitcoin as well. So what you can effectively do is split between the two to double the kind of capacity within each of the tiers. But 5.33% within the first 0.1, then down to 3% for the next 1.4. Previously, I think it was 1.5 on each. So you could hold essentially 3 Bitcoin, 1.5 in Bitcoin, 1.5 in wrapped Bitcoin at pretty decent rates. Now you can still do that to a certain extent, and I think these rates will probably prove to be, there's no guarantees because we haven't had the leaden rates, but I think these will prove to be a fractionally higher than the other rates across the industry. They're certainly higher than BlockFi. So I think like for like kind of rates, when you're not looking at holding loads of tokens or being paid out in tokens or anything like that, I think the Holonaut rates will continue to be probably slightly higher than everyone else, but you can still get sort of like reasonable rates over 3%, probably somewhere around 3.1% on the first 3 Bitcoin, and then you've got another 3 Bitcoin that you can have, so 1.5 on each, down at about 2.5% before it drops down. Now their lowest tier, it must be said, above 3, still 1.31. Now, you know, 6 months ago, a year ago, that would have seemed appalling, but compared to the rates on some of the other ones, which are way under 1% for some of the larger kind of tiers, still relatively kind of competitive. But I think at these kind of rates, you know, the incentive to hold crypto on these kind of platforms as opposed to hold it yourself in kind of like self-custody is lowering kind of month by month as the rates come down. For Ethereum, we are having no cap but 4.28% APY, and then for DAI, down to just over 4% for the first 25,000, 2.5% for the next 75,000, 1.5% for the next 400,000, and then essentially nothing, 0.05% over and above 500,000. USDC 9.41 going down to 3%, but that's the first 100,000. So the first 100,000, 9.41%, pretty decent rate there. Next 400,000, 3%, so they really do drop down quite dramatically. Exactly the same rates here for USDT. And we'll go over the Luna UST stuff in a minute because I want to talk in a little bit more depth about those. Now moving on to BlockFi. Now the good news is that they're, I suppose they're sort of like tier 1 kind of rates on Bitcoin, Ethereum and stablecoins, with the exception of DAI. Are remaining the same, but there are some changes though. Firstly, DAI. Now I think we've seen obviously a big move into kind of DAI with the collapse of UST, etc, etc. So their first tier is going to be 6%, so down from 7% to 6%. That's on the first 20,000. From 20,000 to 2 million, down from 5% to 4%, and then over and above 2 million, down from 4% to 3.5%. So a bit of a kind of drop, not as dramatic as some of the other platforms. Link is going from 3 to 1%. For the first 100, then 0.5 to 0.2% for the second tier. Litecoin going from 3.75 to 2% for the first 20, and then 1.25 down to 1% for the next, or for anything over and above 20. This is the international, sorry, I should say that's the US rate for Litecoin, and then the non-US rate 2% basically for the first 20. Pax Gold, we have an update here, so we've got another drop from 3.25% to 1%, and the same for a Uni, so 3.25 down to 1%. That's for the first 1.5 and 100 respectively. AVAX has halved from 10 to 5%. DOT has actually gone up, so that's the only positive change I think from BlockFi this month. So from 9.5 to 15%, which is quite nice. From 11% to 5%, so just over 50% drop for Matic, and then Solana, that introductory rate at 10% was definitely too good to be true, and it's dropped to now from 10 to 5%. So some of the new ones that were offering very high rates trying to get people onto the platform have dropped pretty much immediately. Within a month they've dropped right down, but nice to see no messing about with the Bitcoin and Ethereum rates this month. They are essentially pretty low anyway on BlockFi. And then moving on to some other stories, I just wanted to run through the whole kind of TerraLuna situation. So this is an article from Hodlnaut. They've been keeping people, I think, out of all the platforms up to date the best with kind of changes. There is a page here which is linked in the description below that you can check, and they will, I believe, keep this specific page updated with all the changes, so suspension of withdrawals and deposits and stuff like that. But essentially, we're here on the 27th of May. As of tomorrow at 6 AM, I think UTC, the new forked chain, or the new chain for Luna, so Luna and UST on the new chain will be airdropped to everybody and will go live. I believe the chain starts up at 6 AM tomorrow morning. That will then leave us with a legacy chain, so you'll have Luna, which will be the new chain, and UST, and then you'll have UST Classic, I believe, and then LUNC, which is the Luna Classic, which will be the old chain. Now, in preparation for this, all these kind of platforms are suspending token swaps and stuff like that. What they don't want to be to happen is, you know, people swapping from kind of like, you know, the old chain to the new chain and making massive kind of like gains or massive kind of losses for that. So there will be a suspension. I imagine this will be the same across a lot of these kind of platforms for the period until everything kind of goes live, and then I imagine everything will be open for deposits and withdrawals. I will, on Tuesday, when I do the passive income experiment where I talk through DeFi stuff a lot more, be going over basically kind of what's happened with Luna and UST. We'll have an idea about how the new chain launch has gone then. So yeah, we'll be talking about that in Tuesday's video. But if you are, or if you were holding either Luna or UST essentially before it depegged on, I think it was the 7th, was it the 7th of May, there's a snapshot taken then, and you'll be airdrop stuff. If you're a smaller wallet holder, you will get 30% that you can do what you want with initially, and then the rest of it will be kind of vested for I think it's a 2-year period with a 6-month cliff, so you won't be able to do anything for 6 months, and then it will gradually kind of like trickle into your wallet. But you'll get 30% of both UST, I believe, and Luna to do what you want with, starting tomorrow morning. So that will be available, I believe, in Terra Station as soon as the new chain is live. But I'll talk about that a little bit more on Tuesday when I have a little bit more time to go over the DeFi stuff. So that's essentially it for this update. Just really wanted to talk through all the kind of like rate changes, mention the kind of potential kind of problems with Celsius. I'm not trying to spread FUD, but if you do have coins on the kind of platform, just be aware that there is a little bit of kind of discontent at the moment, and they seem to be going through a little bit of a rocky patch. So you know, buyer beware. We'll go through all the Luna UST changes. No doubt by the end, by next Friday, we'll have all the platforms that will be supporting the new chain will be on the kind of new chain, and I can let you know about that. So thanks very much for watching as always. I hope you're all keeping safe and well. Hopefully I will see you on the next video, but until then, have a great day. Bye bye.